Anyway, it is a big series. I do not give a dang what the manager of the Cardinals says. I do not care what he says other than to acknowledge how silly it is. This is a big series. You got 7 games head-to-head against the Brewers the rest of the way, and 5 of them are in your yard. And you have a terrible road team. I'm talking about the Cardinals. They've only won 10 of their last 28 road games, and I don't know why people don't talk about that. They've only won, I'm going to repeat it, 10 of their last 28 road games. And in their last 10 road series, I think it's 10 road series. I'll check on that and we'll do this later, but it's an abysmal record. You go back to June 7th, and the only road series they've won was the one in Washington against the worst team in baseball. So if you can't get it done on the road, and there's no reason to be confident in their ability to get it done on the road, the way the season's going, well, you better take care of it at home. And it just so happens that the team you're battling with to win the division, which may be the only way, likely will be the only way either team gets into the playoffs, they're going to have to win the division. And you're at home where you're very, very good. You're the exact opposite of your road team. You're very, very good at home. It's a big series, and you got to win the series. And I'm not saying win all 3. But you better, by Sunday night, it better be at the very least, Cardinals 2 games, Brewers 1 win. It is a big series because you flubbed it up on the road again. That makes it even bigger.
I'm disappointed to hear that from him. You should embrace this. This is what it's about. This is
right.
It's not necessarily completely crunch time, but this is where you're at, man. This is a team that you're battling for that playoff spot for that division. You should go, you know what? Yep, we're going to come out here. We're going to bring in. I really hope, Bernie, you got to be fundamentally sound in a series like this, because this is a kind of thing where you didn't cover first, or you know, those little things that we talk about that you don't do will cost you a game in a situation like this. This is where you got to be sharp. And
his exact quote was, I think it was Derek Gould or somebody out there. I forget. I think it was Derek, but don't hold me to that. He asked him about the series, and Marmol said, I don't believe in big series.
Yeah, that's wrong.
And then he says, this was a big series. Yeah, it was a big series in Colorado because you guys screwed it up. Anyway, let's go. We don't want to keep Todd Rosiak waiting. And hardworking beat writer, covers the Brewers, and he has for a long time for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. He's in town, of course, covering the Brewers-Cardinals series, 3 games starting tonight. And I don't know Todd that well. I mean, we were in press boxes for quite a long time until I moved out of the newspaper business. But he assisted the great Tom Haudricourt, who's now retired, and Todd is the lead beat writer. And he does an excellent job, and I say that as a Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel digital subscriber. Todd, how you doing, man? Really good, nice of you to do this. I know you're busy.
Ernie, really appreciate the kind words. Big shoes for me to fill with Tom moving on. Yeah, obviously he did a great job for, 36 years covering this team. So not unlike the commish, Rick Hummel here in St. Louis that everybody obviously knows. But happy to take the opportunity and take the baton from him and do the best I can. And we also appreciate the digital subscription, Bernie.
It's excellent. You guys do a phenomenal job. You really do. And a lot of good video on there, too. Before we get into the series, and again, I don't want to waste your time, but I have to ask you, is Haudricourt staying away from the press box, or is he in there bellowing and bothering you guys all the time?
It's been much quieter. I will say that, and that's a comment we get everywhere we go. But he lives in Virginia now, and which is where he's from.
Right.
He was planning on coming up in June to meet up with us for a day in D.C. when the Brewers are playing at Washington, and about a week before that, he caught COVID.
Man.
Was unable to make it. Yeah, he's doing okay. He bounced back pretty quickly, but it's just bad timing more than anything. Would have loved to have seen him, but yeah, like I said, definitely quieter in the press box and a little less personality, that's for sure.
Todd Rosiak with us from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, covers the Brewers. Well, I'm really just looking forward to this series. I mean, it's been a while since they've played. It's been a while since the Brewers have been in St. Louis. they're sort of playing tag all season. I mean, the Brewers go up and it's looking bad for the Cardinals, and then the Cardinals make a move and the Brewers slip up a little bit, and but neither one of them seems very secure when they get the lead.
No, that's for sure. I think that's a great way of putting it. It has been kind of one team jumps out 3-4 game lead, and then the other team slips up, and the other team gets back into it. That's what makes it fun. Let's be honest. It's it's always been a very competitive rivalry between these two teams, and seemingly for much of the last decade, that's the way it's been. And these are the kind of series that all the fans look forward to. I know the Brewers love coming down here and playing, and they're usually really good games. So, coming into this, the Brewers, their recent performance has been colored a little bit, of course, by the Josh Hader trade and kind of the changes that's brought about, and then also the fact that the Brewers did not fare real well in their last go-round with the Pirates and the Reds, which is, we all know, following the Central, you gotta beat the lesser lights to help yourself out in the long run against the teams like the Cardinals. So, they come in here off 2 wins against the Rays. They swept the Rays 4 games this year. Obviously good. So now we'll see where they stand against their rivals and their rival and one of the best teams in the National League, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the Brewers have been a solid team on the road. I mean, they're above 500 3 games, and the Cardinals have been very disappointing on the road most of the time. And that's one of the things I kind of want to ask you about this. One of the things I've always respected about the Brewers team, under Craig Counsell with David Stearns and that core that they have, is they're so competitive. I mean, they're a tough-minded team. And I understood why they were maybe a little down in the dumps after the Hader trade. And again, you guys did a terrific job covering that, including all the comments made a couple days after the trade by Mark Atanasio, the owner, and, of course, David Stearns, and they were trying to explain themselves. But what I want to ask you, the Tampa Bay, the 2 games that they won at home, beating Tampa Bay, walk-off in the second one, are they kind of over it, for lack of a better term now? Are they kind of over the doldrums after the post-Hader trade?
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty accurate. I don't think the fans are over it. Frankly, I don't think the fans are ever going to be over it. But in the clubhouse, the initial shock is kind of worn off. And, they lost a couple of brutal games in Pittsburgh. And one player said after that series, had we won 2 of those, the last 2 games in that series, everybody would have forgotten about the trade. But, they go into that series against the Reds then with the 2 losses, or the sweep, in the background. Then you go and lose 2 or 3 of the Reds, and things all of a sudden are, the sky is falling. You know how fans, tend to overreact. But in the clubhouse, I think, the things have settled down. The waters have calmed a little bit. The only kind of questionable piece right now is Taylor Rogers, obviously one of the guys they got back in the Hader trade, and a guy that they were really counting on moving forward this season. He had a cortisone shot in his knee last weekend, and his status is a little bit up in the air right now. So that's one big gun down in the bullpen. Obviously, Devin Williams is still out there and done an incredible job. They picked up Matt Bush from the Rangers. He closed the game for them against the Rays, and he's been a pretty good pickup so far. So to me, they lose Hader. Obviously, it's a huge deal, but I think in the long run, it's going to be a more versatile, more flexible bullpen. And Craig Counsell is going to have multiple options in those final 2 innings, whereas before it was written in stone. You had Boxberger in the 7th, Williams in the 8th, and Hader in the 9th.
Todd Rosiak with us from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. A few more minutes. And I know Hader is no longer under your beat, so to speak. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. He got beat up pretty good there before the All-Star break, and even in San Diego, like his 3rd appearance, he got knocked around a little bit. And I wonder, and I watch a lot of Brewers games, but I didn't see the one in San Diego when he got beat up a little bit. But is there anything wrong with him? I mean, what is your read on the situation, Todd?
Yeah, it's a very good question. And, I was out in San Francisco that game where he got destroyed. Gave up 3 homers, 6 earned runs. Just to put that in perspective, he allowed 8 runs all of last season, and he allowed 6 runs in that one outing, that blown save in San Francisco. And quite frankly, from the time the calendar flipped to July on, he's struggled badly. And while the Brewers won't come out and publicly say it, I think behind the scenes they were pretty nervous about that downward trend with Josh, and I think it definitely did play a role in the trade. Now, people can argue the Brewers didn't get enough for Hader, and I'm no expert on prospects, but the 2 guys that they got back, the 2 minor leaguers they got back, they're super high on, and they feel like they're going to be pieces for them. The outfielder, Esteury Ruiz, we could even see him this season, and the left-handed pitcher that they got is a guy that I think that they're really counting on, maybe even as early as toward the end of next year, getting up to the majors. So, the thing that fans will point to, and, the old small market deal is, they're cutting costs. They actually picked up money at the trade deadline with the acquisition of Trevor Rosenthal as well. So you can't point to that really, but the factor is the main piece of this is long-term. They would have had Josh Hader one more year next season at, probably 15, 16, 17 million. And then he's gone. And they felt like they could get the most for him right now, as opposed to waiting till the off season, and definitely as opposed to waiting till next season to trade him. So they made the move, as unpopular as it was, and now I guess only time will tell whether or not it was a good move.
A 2-part question for you about the same topic, basically. Number one, the state of the Brewers' offense. I mean, they hit a lot of home runs, and they haven't stopped. I mean, it's actually really impressive, and they got a lot of balance in the people that hit the home runs. A lot of them do. And that's number one. But number 2, were you surprised that they didn't land a bat right before the trade deadline?
Yeah, I mean, then that was one of the real big questions, and another complaint that all the Brewers fans had was, one more bat really would have lengthened this lineup out, which may well have been true, but from everything that I understand and we were able to ascertain was, they were in on pretty much all the guys that did not move. The main factor in those trades not being consummated ultimately was just the fact that the ask was too high. The Brewers have spent the last few years really trying to stock up their minor league system. It had taken a hit with some previous trades several years ago. They're still considered in the bottom third of the majors, and in terms of quality and depth and everything. But they do have a pretty good number of highly touted prospects, especially in the outfield. So David Stearns, I'm sure, just felt the ask was too high for whatever a rental bat would be. But looking at the offense in general, yeah, they are very heavily reliant on the home run. But since the All-Star break, they've really done a better job of manufacturing a run and up and down the lineup, just having good at-bats, not striking out quite as much, more situational hitting. You even see the team drop down a bunt every now and again, which is almost unheard of on a Craig Counsell-managed team. So they've been able to win games by not relying on the home run, which was definitely not the case earlier in the season.
Yeah, I was checking their numbers on FanGraphs since the All-Star break and just using, Park and League adjusted runs created, otherwise known as, WRC plus. I just had to explain the gobbledygook there. I was like, wow. I mean, they have so many guys, regulars, who were well above that 100, which is average, for that metric. Yeah. I mean, a lot of guys, and I'm like, they're all chipping in. I mean, I think I actually think it's a very underrated and underappreciated offense, and it's maybe. Yeah, and go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Ernie. I was just going to say, I think that's the key, is looking deeper than just the surface. If you look at a casual fan just looks at the batting averages, you'll see of the regulars, Andrew McCutchen is their leading hitter at 255. Now, that's not going to blow anybody's doors off for sure, but they are doing things that count and very often don't show in those normal quote unquote statistics. And they've got a few spots where they're platooning and they're getting good production from. And, they made the big move earlier in the season of moving Christian Yelich from the 3 spot into the leadoff spot, and he's been terrific up there. I believe since that move, he leads the major leagues in on-base percentage from that leadoff spot. And there's some really good guys, obviously, that do hit first across the league. So they've figured out a way to, get that production from him and make him, be a more productive player, whereas he wasn't necessarily driving in those runs from the 3rd spot earlier in the season.
We don't want to keep you much longer, but I just want to get maybe final thoughts on this. Like, what do you think the Brewers have to do? And this is true of all teams who are contending. First of all, stay healthy, or get healthy and stay there. But what do you think the Brewers have to do to win the division? And I know actually they're about to enter a stern test now, with 10 of their next 13 games against the Cardinals and Dodgers. But what do you think they have to do to take this from the Cardinals?
Yeah, I really the health piece is huge. And like you said, it's true of every team, but this is a team that's really been hit hard by injuries all season. And the injuries have come at positions of huge importance. Brandon Woodruff missed a good amount of time this season. Freddie Peralta missed a good amount of time this season. Adrian Pauser is still out. That's 3/5 of your starting rotation that has missed considerable time, and that was by far the strength of this team coming into the year. So most of those guys are back now. In fact, all of them are back except for Adrian Hauser. He should be ready here in the next, I would think, 10 days or so to rejoin the team. And, just getting that pitching staff back and in full force. And then you can slide Aaron Ashby from the rotation back into the bullpen. That gives you another piece there. And the other important thing, I think, is just of the remaining games that they have against the teams like the Pirates, the Reds, the Cubs, you gotta win the bulk of those, really, to try to, if not keep pace with the Cardinals, or even build yourself a little bit of a cushion, because these head-to-head games, of which I think there are 7 remaining with the Cardinals, they're so big. They're 1-game swings either way. So getting healthy, beating those teams that you need to beat, I think those are the 2 real keys to keeping the Brewers in it for the long haul.
Todd, again, thank you so much for giving us some time. I know I know because I read the Journal Sentinel every day for Brewers coverage, and I know how much content you put out. So thanks for taking a few minutes for us, and I hope you have a good weekend in St. Louis.
Bernie, seriously, anytime. Always great to talk to you. Really appreciate the kind words. So feel free to reach out anytime you need me. I'll be here.
Well, we'll do that before the teams play again, which down in September they play twice. Well, one here and then one there. So, again. All right. Well, take care. And again,
look forward to it.
Yeah, thank you, my friend. That's Todd Rosiak from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. What a great guy. And again, I didn't get to know him. Not that the listeners care. I did not get to know him as well as Tom Haudricourt, who within baseball writing circles is actually like a legendary guy. I mean, and also an entertaining guy. Like no matter where you were in the press box at Miller Park, and even before that, but going back to the ballpark before that, I mean, actually you could hear him in the entire stadium. It didn't matter where you were. He was like the loudest guy ever, and it actually was an endearing trait. But you always knew where he was because you could hear him. And I think actually, when he was covering the Brewers and the Cubs at Wrigley Field, I think they probably could hear him on the south side of Chicago. So anyway, I miss Tom Haudricourt because he's just a character, But Todd Rosiak does a really good job, and that was very cool of him to do this today. I know how busy he is, so he's right about the injuries. I was looking, Jim, before we take a break here. Mm-hmm. The Brewers collectively have missed their players have missed 864 days this season, and just for a frame of reference, the Cardinals their players have missed 677 days, which is almost like 200 days fewer. But the Brewers have had some big names spend time on the sideline too. But I'm glad that Todd Rosiak explained their offense, because I think their offense is underrated. I really think it's overlooked. The Cardinals score more runs per game than the Brewers, but the margin is not great. But the Brewers seem to have, and this is only because this would not be the case if Tyler O'Neill and Dylan Carlson were doing anything this season, right? If they were doing something close to what they should do or what they were expected to do. But from top to bottom, I actually think, even though they don't have that superstar duo, they can't match, certainly cannot match the combination of Goldie and Arenado. But from top to bottom, I think they have more balance in their lineup. Because that's the thing about the Cardinals. I mean, man, they have the two big stars. But yet we kind of wait for that, well, who's the third big bat? I mean, they didn't have a problem identifying that last year. This year it's an issue. And the Brewers don't have that big megastar now that Yelich is more human, but they can pretty much sting you from any spot in the lineup. And I appreciate and respect that about them. And they are a little more, they don't have to lean so hard on any one or two guys. They get a lot of contributions across the board offensively.
As I just took a quick glance to your point, they've got 6 guys with double-digit home runs in the lineup tonight, and one of them is not Yelich.
Right. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, that tells you the balance, and I really enjoyed Rosiak's comments about how since Yelich has gone to the leadoff spot, he's amongst the best on base.
He's been getting on base, and the power is better. It's just not gaudy numbers,
Mm-hmm.
But it's better than it was. So this will be fun. I mean, this will be fun. But seeing the Brewers come into town, and the Cardinals should have an advantage over them because the Cardinals are great at home. Although, again, earlier in the season, I mean, they split 4 games here as well, and the Cardinals couldn't put them away. And that's the one thing about this season series to date that if you're a Cardinals fan, it should really annoy you at least to an extent. Until this one, every series they've played, there's been 3 of them, have been 4-game series, 2 in Milwaukee and 1 in St. Louis. All 3 of those 4-game series played out the same way, where going into the final game of the series, the Cardinals had a 2-1 lead. And, you get the series closer, and you win 3 out of 4, and that's a big deal to win 3 out of 4. It just is. I mean, in terms of the cumulative impact on the standings, the Cardinals have not been able to finish this team off when they had a chance in all of the 3 series they've played. Now, what's it going to be like this weekend? I'm looking at it, and I'm not making any predictions. I'm certainly not betting anything, but the Cardinals hit left-handed pitchers really well. Let's just say they get one tonight, the Cardinals. And then Saturday, listen, all due respect to Wainwright, but until the Cardinals actually can, score 1 run against Corbin Burns, I'm just going to give him the edge going in. And then we could have one of those things set up for Sunday where it's 1-1 after 2 games. Are the Cardinals ever going to be able to beat this team when they've got that opportunity on the table? I mean, then there's 3 more series, and after this one, the remaining 2 series are just 2-game sets. 1 in St. Louis in September, and then a little later on in September, 1 in Milwaukee. But the Cardinals have one of the reasons why they're only a half a game up on the Brewers is they had opportunities to put 3 more wins on the table when they've played them this year, and they didn't do it. They went 0 for 3 in finishing off a 4-game series and winning it 3-1. So is that going to continue, or if the Cardinals want to win the NL Central? At some point, I always use the boxing metaphors. At some point, when you got an opponent like backed in the corner, as the Cardinals have had in all 3 series before this one, at some point, don't you have to knock them down? Maybe knock them out, not for the season, of course, but you knock them out and you leave the ballpark and they're dazed and you're happy. They haven't been able to do that. And if you want to win the division, I think you better start doing that.
That's why when you started the show talking about what Ollie said, I was like, no, Ollie, you need to be aggressive here. You need to realize, to your point, it's time to go after and put some distance between you and them. You failed with that opportunity in Colorado. You failed a number of times this year to do that. and you let them back in the race. They're in the race right now. And last night, I think it was right before we closed the show, you relayed the message that Raleigh Tellez said, hey, man, we're looking forward to this series. That's what the Cardinals should be doing.
McCutcheon said it too, yeah.
You got to be, hey, we respect them, but we're going after this thing. This is huge. This is what it's all about here. And they need to be aggressive on this one. Don't sit back and be passive.
I agree. And Nolan Arenado, to his credit, he's one guy that'll actually speak what's on his mind. He acknowledged that, look, it's tooth and nail when you play this team, and we got to get it done. And at least he acknowledged it. But this attempt to downplay the importance of the series and to somehow, say it's on the same level of every series. I mean, I hate to say this, but it's like, what are you afraid of?
Right.
I mean, you don't have more confidence than that, where it's like you can't build this up to be something big, which it is. You manage adult grown-ass men, right? This isn't Little League. So that was just weird. And I think it was revealing in a way that he probably didn't even realize, But maybe, and I'm being serious, maybe I'm reading too much into him. But I just the way he looked when he said it, too, that he was irritated. And it's like, why the hell would you be irritated?
It's sometimes, and I don't know for sure, but sometimes when he does things like this, I go, first-year manager? Is that what's going on here? Just
I don't know.
Not getting maybe the importance. We talked about just how different he managed the bullpen in Colorado, and I kind of was like, maybe his first time through Colorado, he's got to understand you got to do it differently there. Letting guys hang out to dry like he did with Cabrera, or letting Miklasz out there to take the beating just because, we got to, hey, get him out of there. Let your other guys throw. I don't know.
You're on to something. I think a column could be coming up in the next few weeks at scoops@DannyMac.com.
Okay.
When we talk about when this thing gets down to the final month or so, we'll talk about it on the air. But we'll do a thing where we talk about, okay, who's got the most pressure on him, And I actually think that the manager of the Cardinals got more pressure on him going into that final month or so than any player. Because the one thing about Mike Shildt, man, he was a closer. I mean, they had you go back and look at his record when he replaced Matheny, and I'm not saying 27 Yankees good, but it was good. It was better than it was with Matheny managing. And they made a little bit of a playoff run. And, again, they weren't a great team, but they played better. They really did. And then, in 2019, pardon me, look at their record in the second half or the final couple months. I mean, it's the only time they've beat the Brewers and won first place in the Central for a while. And they finished strong, and they finished with 91 wins. And we all know what happened last year. The Cardinals are pretty mediocre. And I know that a lot of that had to do with the pitching staff being blown apart. I get it. But that 17-game winning streak and the way they played over the last couple months, really, really impressive. So Shildt, for all the things I didn't like about him or whatever, we scratched and claws. We battled our tails, when games where the effort was actually kind of lame. That stuff drove me nuts. But anyway, the guy, whether you like him, you didn't like him, or you're kind of neutral, everyone should acknowledge that this team was a really good closer under Mike Shildt. Now, what's it going to be with Ollie? I really do think the managing down the stretch like this is going to make a difference, because if you just sit there and twiddle your thumbs because you're thinking about a game that's like 5 days away, and that's preventing you from bringing somebody in, it's just like, you're overthinking this. And I don't want him to tear up his relievers. I've actually defended him on this.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, we got to try to get this extra inning out of Miles Michaelis because, 11 days from now. It's like, what? No, you don't have to try to get an extra inning out of Miles Michaelis. That's why y'all go to Mo and you ask him if he can cut, you can carry like 20 pitchers, and then he'll tell you, well, no, you can't because the limit is 13. I think it's 13.
It is 13.
No, they're stocked up. They got pitchers all over the place. Well, we didn't, we needed to get that one inning out of Cabrera, and because next Thursday, it's like, what? I'm telling you, this is going to be a thing to watch in the final month. It is.
I'm there with you. I know a little bit later we'll talk about the lineup. He went, I don't want to call it safe, but he went the safe route with the lineup tonight in the leadoff spot, as opposed to something you and I talked about, going, hey, why not let Lars go to bat up there again, even though it's a lefty. But he went the other route tonight.
Yeah, and he's got O'Neill batting. Second, I think. Doesn't he?
Yes.
That's kind of a bold move, because you're like,
that
okay, these are two of our most talented hitters who have done absolutely nothing. And I don't care how bad Carlson is as a leadoff hitter. I'm gonna keep him there. And O'Neill, you're gonna bat second. And you know what? Maybe it'll juice him up. I don't know. I mean, there is a left-hander on the mound.
Yes.
Tonight. However, Ali Marmol also knows this. I looked it up today. Dylan Carlson is actually hitting righties better than lefties this year. There's not much difference at all. So if that's the justification, well, he hits lefties good. Well, he used to. That ain't happening much lately either. And so, but it'll be interesting. Believe it or not, I don't mind O'Neill batting second. I don't. I mean, it's a different look. Get him out of the – I don't know whether – I think the guy's feeling a lot of pressure because this whole season has been a big screw-up. And it started even before he swung a bat for the first time, because he was freaking out over this arbitration battle with the Cardinals,
Mm-hmm.
and Scott Boras ready to, banging the war drums and all that. So he hadn't been right in the head, and then he also got hurt twice on the IL. He was there. He hadn't been right all year. So maybe you give him a different look at the top of the lineup. I mean, it can't hurt. So interesting.